You're probably familiar with flex DPS players like Zeruhh and Kevster, but did you know that there's been a hidden player lurking in the shadows of these giants, waiting for his time to strike all along? This is the unlikely tale of how a console Genji main became the shadow of legends, only to usurp their throne in the end. Welcome to the story of WMaimone. Born on April 22, 2004, WMaimone is a true diamond in the rough in the Overwatch esports community, being the only notable Welsh player currently active in the scene. Nowadays, Maimone is known as an extremely solid flex DPS player with a particularly potent Echo, Genji, and Tracer who is currently tearing up the North American region of OWCS. However, as a young player, his path to the top was much rockier than many of his predecessors, having to navigate the treacherous path to pro system and controversial transition to Overwatch 2. So settle in as we go back to the very beginning to get caught up on the history of Maimone, and make sure to like and subscribe because on top of this, we've got some fun stuff with some more top players coming your way very soon. Being only 14 years old when Overwatch League started, William began playing casually with his friends on console in the early days of Overwatch, blissfully unaware of the world that he would soon be completely wrapped up in.
First started playing on Xbox just like really casually. It was just a game that like my IRL friends I think picked up, and then I started playing. But then I kind of like really liked the game. Like I was playing it a lot, and eventually towards like the last maybe year, 6 months of my time on Xbox, I kind of like played on a team a little bit, just like really casually. But that kind of like lit the spark for the competitive drive, I suppose, inside of me. And that's kind of when I was like, oh, maybe I should get a PC and start playing. And then like when I got my PC, I always had the intent of like, I want to try go pro. So yeah, I would say actually like the last part of me playing on Xbox was what really got me into competing.
These Xbox lobbies are where he would develop both his passion for Overwatch and his gamertag, which has become the bane of our casters and analysts.
All my like IRL friends all had like gamer tags with something related to their names, so I kind of just copied them. Obviously, my last name is Maimone, but it's like an Italian last name, so I don't really know how to pronounce it myself. All the people in my family pronounce it differently. So if I would have to say like a correct pronunciation, I'd say like WMaimone, but yeah, it doesn't really bother me too much. So the team I was playing with on Xbox, we played in like some tournament, not like high level or anything, but we won, and that was like, that again, it kind of like made me like, oh wow, I like this. I want to do more of this.
Maimone's first taste of victory in that Xbox tournament was the catalyst that led him to become the player we know today. But obviously Maimone isn't out there diffing sugar-free on the stick spamming WMaimone like the OWCS observers.
WMaimone.
Where my money?
WMaimone.
Where my money?
Where my money at?
I've heard other casters say that before actually. First time I heard it was like 3 or 4 years ago. I find it funny. I like it. Yeah.
Speaking from experience as an ex-console player, there's basically no stable competitive scene in the console community. And if you're a flex DPS player who loves Genji, a mouse becomes more and more appealing compared to a controller when you watch Shadowburn, Agilities, and WYOU hitting ghost dashes circa 2017 and think to yourself, man, I wish I could do that. With all of that in mind, it was time to hang up the sticks.
Everything just felt so different because I was so new. Because like I got PC in 2019, and then yeah, I started competing properly in 2020. So it was like everything felt different. Like I didn't know anyone, and I was just like really trying to climb my way up the competitive scene, I suppose. I would say I was always like a fairly competitive person. When I was younger, I did sports, and I would say I was like pretty competitive in that. And just like my personality in general, I've always like liked winning, I suppose. So yeah, really different, but also very fun. In a way, you could say it was more fun because everything is new. So when I first started playing on Xbox, I think I mainly played Genji. So then when I came to PC, I wanted to like learn the role that was like Genji was in. So I guess that's why I kind of learned Flex DPS. DPS is just like really fun to me. You can have so much impact on the game. But that being said, I think especially compared to a lot of players, I do like off-rolling a lot, especially support. Like I like playing support a lot. Like I do find the other roles fun to play as well, but DPS is just another level, I guess.
Freed from the restraints of console, Maimone began developing his Flex DPS with ambitions of going pro, spending 2019 grinding PC Overwatch and making his way up to the top of the European ranked ladder. Heading into 2020, Maimone continued his ranked grind, but of course the world had a little bit of an incident that left everyone locked away with nothing to do. Maimone, either through boredom or confidence, decided to enter his first PC tournament in June, the Pumpkin Cup.
Well, my first team that we got Contenders Trials in was called Stop Toxicity, and that was a really fun team. I was like really good friends with them all.
He and his team Stop Toxicity fought through 2 map 5s and a 7-map grand finals, but unfortunately for his opponent, Maimone and the team put the W in his name and he took first place in his first recorded event ever. It's worth pointing out that Maimone keeps himself very busy as a player and has participated in countless community tournaments over the years, and it would be too much to cover in detail here. So I encourage you to check out his Liquidpedia page and follow him on social media in order to get the full story and keep up with future chapters. That being said, Maimone and Stop Toxicity would keep pushing straight into Open Division Season 3 a month later. This was Maimone's first step into the Overwatch path to pro and would be a much bigger challenge than the Pumpkin Cup. Unlike your average community cup, the path to pro was an opportunity for players to punch up and showcase their talents to the Overwatch League teams, and Maimone was now standing alongside Stop Toxicity at the bottom level of the tower, Open Division.
Old habits die hard. Maimone with a quadra kill cleans it up. Stop Toxicity should be able and are taking the real estate, and what a play it was.
They managed to squeak out a 7th to 8th place finish and slip into Contenders Trials in Maimone's very first attempt. Trials was the next level of competition, and Stop Toxicity's group was populated by future Overwatch League players like Admiral, Sauna, and Backbone. The task was a bit too tall for the squad at the time, as they bottomed their group and were relegated back down to Open Division for the next season. Despite being back to square one, his first stint in the Path to Pro system was valuable, as he got his first taste of serious high-level competition with stakes on the line, and gained experience versus the best players and teams he'd ever faced. Stop Toxicity ran it back into Open Division Season 4 and did a bit better, achieving 5th to 6th place, which gave them another shot at Trials. Maimone would take this shot, but would take it over at Vasta Gaming as Stop Toxicity disbanded in September. Vasta Gaming was only performing slightly better than Stop Toxicity in the prior stint, and Maimone's second go at Trials was also just slightly better, achieving a 5th place finish which didn't qualify them for Contenders, but allowed them to stay in Trials for the October season where they placed 6th and got relegated yet again. This might seem stale, but the Path to Pro system was known to be difficult for new players, and despite these middling results, 2020 showcased slow and steady improvement with Maimone and Vasta heading into the final season of 2020 Open Division and placing 3rd, which qualified them for their final Trials event together in November, where they pulled out a solid 4th place finish. So from a 6th place finish in August Trials to a 4th place finish in November Trials, the second half of 2020 served as Maimone's introduction to serious competitive Overwatch, which he absolutely smashed by getting out of Open Division as fast as possible while picking up some victories and a handful of community cups along the way. With the trajectory he showed as a rookie on the scene, there was really only one way for Maimone to go. Going into 2021, Maimone would be looking to break out of Tier 3 and Tier 4 altogether, which would require a solid team with high potential across the board, something that was hard to come by at that level of the Path to Pro. Luckily for Maimone, there was actually another option, which is to just get picked up straight into a Contenders team. This would be Maimone's personal Path to Pro, as Sheercold saw his early potential and picked him up for their 2021 year of Contenders. Sheercold entered Contenders 2021 Season 1 March, with notable players such as Krandop, Ken, and Anj playing alongside Maimone. March would be the time to experiment and get used to the new roster, as there was no threat of relegation, and Sheercold would place 5th to 6th after being eliminated by the band of ex-Overwatch League ENCE, Young and Beautiful. For April, the pressure was on, as that kind of placement would now see them relegated to Trials, and unfortunately, April didn't go any better, and the team would need to earn their way back into Contenders for Season 2. Taken down a peg, Maimone and Sheercold fought their way through Trials yet again. Except this time, with the talent that Sheercold had, Maimone was able to climb that mountain and the team achieved 2nd place, earning them back their rightful spot in Contenders Season 2. With French hitscan prodigy Asking rounding out his DPS duo, Maimone was looking to make a statement this June, which they accomplished by placing 3rd, losing out to British Hurricane in the lower bracket final. This was a huge step up, as he was only one win away from his first Grand Finals event ever. But the catch is that June was just the first half of Season 2, which meant that there was never any threat of relegation. July was where the team would need to prove that their third place finish wasn't a fluke and save themselves from another season of trials. But unfortunately, July didn't go as smoothly, with their only victory in playoffs being against Old and Bored, and a quarterfinals departure making for a lukewarm 5th to 6th place finish. You know what that means. Back to trials with this one. I don't know about you, but I'm getting sick of talking about this constant back and forth between Open Division, Trials, and Contenders. But that's simply a testament to how grueling this system was, because I can assure you that the annoyance we both feel isn't even half of what the players like Maimone felt navigating the path to pro. And the proof is in the pudding, as Sheer Cold was through with Trials and stormed to first place in order to once again ascend to Contenders for the final season of 2021. And look, as inspiring as a first place finish in Trials was back in the day, the sheer cold truth of the matter is that there was a fairly large gap between each level of competition, and success in one tier didn't always translate to success in another tier. Moreover, as Monty used to say, Overwatch is not an anime, and if it was, the scriptwriters are cruel, as Maimone's win in Trials translated to an unfortunate 7th to 8th place finish for the season, capping off a bittersweet year. All things considered, it was at least nice that Maimone didn't have to spend this year fighting just to be in Trials, and instead got to gain months of experience against future and past Tier 1 talent. For most players, this would be a decent second year of competition, especially considering that he was only about 17 years old at the time. Life takes you in some unexpected directions, however, and Maimone ended up departing from Sheer Cold and retiring from Overwatch altogether on September 7th, 2021, leaving those who knew his talents at the time very sad. Players and supporters noted how he had shown immense improvement in such a short time and that he was an excellent teammate, so it really is a shame that this is the end of our story. WMaimone had a lot to prove, and I guess we'll never know what he could have become. Of course, our story doesn't end here, as with Overwatch 2 on the horizon, things were about to get shaken up big time, and Maimone just couldn't stay away, as only 2 months after posting his retirement, he would be found competing in a Zotac Cup community tournament. Some things in life never change, and one of those things is the Overwatch-sized hole we all feel while stepping away or playing other games.
I think just other games don't feel as fun. I feel like the feel of Overwatch is so different, I would say. Like, I have played like Valorant and Marvel Rivals recently. I played it like a little bit and it was fun, but it's just not the same as Overwatch. And I suppose also because it was this first game that I've like competed and started getting really good at, that also keeps me, I would say.
Moving into 2022, the community was buzzing with anticipation for Overwatch 2, and competitive play had temporarily paused in preparation for the transition. So while he waited, Maimone competed in a few community cups to stay fresh for when Contenders would return in July on not only a new patch, but a whole new game. As the deadline approached, Maimone needed to find a new team or else his early retirement would be extended to September. Luckily, on July 6th, the Ultimates picked up their new roster featuring Maimone, Sana, and a handful of other promising European players, leaving them 9 days to prepare for the Contenders Summer Series A-Sides. After cruising through the A-Side qualifiers, Maimone and the Ultimates found themselves in playoffs versus Team Peps, who took Map 1 and then brought Map 2 of Midtown to a draw. Not keen on going down to the lower bracket this early, the Ultimates brought the series back 3-1, which took them to their next opponent, OWCS Esports. Then underrated DPS duo UB and Quartz proved to be too much to handle, something we can fully understand today, and the Ultimates fell to the lower bracket to face Europe's notorious band of one-tricks, Aw Yeah. Thankfully, Maimone and the team didn't play into Aw Yeah's circus games and dominantly eliminated the one-trick hopefuls. This brought them to face our partnered organization, Oblivione, who at the time had an extremely solid roster featuring KSA, Lethal, and Kellex, whose experience outweighed the Ultimates' ambition that day, meaning that Maimone's first Overwatch 2 tournament ended here in the lower bracket semifinal, achieving 4th place. The year wasn't over, as with an A-side must come a B-side, and the Ultimates decided to run it back with the same roster to try and eke out a better result. The team had a great group stage, going 8-3, but struggled against Ben Best and Team Peps in the upper bracket, and was ultimately eliminated by an early Twisted Minds roster. The B-sides unfortunately weren't what the Ultimates had hoped to achieve, with the 5th to 6th place finish marking the end of the Contenders 2020 Summer Series for Maimone and the team. One major Tier 2 event remained for 2022, and in October, the Ultimates organization decided to part ways with their roster, leaving Maimone and the team a couple weeks to find new teams before Contenders Run It Back began in November. Maimone and a few other ex-Ultimates players joined Young and Beautiful and entered Open Division Season 2 in hopes of making it to Run It Back, which they would achieve by defeating that same Twisted Minds roster to finish first. This qualified them for Run It Back, where they placed third in the group stage and lined up to face off against Raspberry Racers in the quarterfinals. Despite an extra round scare on Map 2, Maimone and the team dominated this match, fully holding Raspberry Racers on Route 66 to end it off. Next up was a familiar foe, OWWC. This time, their roster was bolstered even more by bringing on Shockwave, who would help EXO secure the win 3-1, sending Young and Beautiful down to the lower bracket for the final time of the year. It would be a long road to the finals, but one worth fighting for, seeing as these were some of the final moments of the 2022 competitive season. And fight they did, narrowly beating Twisted Minds once again, taking down Raspberry Racers for a second time, and meeting Team Peps in yet another lower bracket match. From Lijiang Tower to Kings Row and Junkertown to Esperanza, this dogfight went blow for blow as each team won their map picks, finally culminating in a map 5 on Busan, which of course also went the distance. Maimone had been putting in work on Echo and Genji all match, but in the final moments, Team Peps pulled through and claimed their spot in the grand finals where they too would get sent into oblivion. So at the end of 2022, Maimone was sitting in 3rd place in Tier 2 of Europe, as opposed to where he was 12 months prior, retired and unsure about his future. Of course, everyone wants to win, but recognizing that Maimone was playing against mostly Overwatch League talent towards the end of these tournaments shows how tight the competition really was, and at the end of the day, Maimone and Young and Beautiful were the only team to take a map off of OWWC in that final tourney, so it wasn't like they were out of reach entirely. From the view near the top of Europe, Maimone could tell that this is what he was meant to be doing, and it's a good thing he stuck with it because 2023 would present the opportunity of a lifetime, one that had been unceremoniously stripped from us back in 2020. On December 17th, 2022, Blizzard surprised the community by officially announcing that the Overwatch World Cup would be returning for 2023 alongside BlizzCon for the first time since 2019. This presented a huge opportunity for players across the globe, as years had passed since the last World Cup and many players had either come up or moved on. Great Britain was one of the teams affected by this, as many of their legacy players like Boombox, Fusions, and Cruz had moved on from Overwatch, leaving Kai, Funny Astro, and Smex to pick up the pieces and fill in the gaps. And just to quell any confusion, Maimone is from Wales, which falls under Great Britain in the Overwatch World Cup, meaning that this team, which has a bit of a history of surprising us at the World Cup, is the one that Maimone would be looking to get onto, seeing as there aren't even enough notable players to make a competitive Team Wales in the first place.
Yeah, it's really small. The biggest name in Wales, like Welsh Overwatch, other than me, would probably be like Mikey A, which is kind of like a throwback. Obviously, he hasn't played in ages. I had like a really good friend of mine who was playing, but recently, like the past year or so, he started playing Marvel. Yeah, I don't know. There's not that many Welsh Overwatch players.
In preparation for the World Cup and in the absence of any major events, WMaimone formed MYMone with Vestola, Canale, and more to compete in some smaller tournaments. But come February, the Great Britain World Cup Open Trials began, and Team MYMone was transformed into a Tier 2 UK super team, with the likes of Hybrid, J-Karu, and Crispy joining the mix. They would start the Open Trials in the upper bracket and dominate their way to the finals, where they ultimately toppled Tread and the Treadheads, claiming first place in the Open Trials and locking in a seat in the official Team UK tryouts.
The trial process was fairly simple. They tweeted about it, like the Team UK, and then so people could like apply, and then there was like a big server with loads of players. I think certain players went straight through to phase 2, which were mainly like, I think only Overwatch League players, so it was like, you know, like the Kais, Funny Astro, Backbone players. I started in phase 1, I think. Yeah, so you just like do scrims against the other players, and then got moved on to phase 2 or whatever, and then eventually like Christopher DM'd me saying, you're on the team, and that was a really good feeling. That was amazing.
After getting the nod from Christopher, Maimone joined the squad alongside Kai, Funny Astro, Backbone, Smex, J-Karu, and Cronus, and they began preparing for the conference qualifiers that would take place later on in July. In the meantime, the 2023 Overwatch League season was approaching, and to start the season off with a bang, Blizzard organized a Pro-Am in order to let Tier 2 play against Tier 1 in an official setting for the first time in years. This was extremely exciting for Tier 2 players like Maimone, because it was the perfect opportunity to showcase your skills by gapping some Overwatch League players. Maimone's time with Young and Beautiful had been over for a few months already, so he would be in search of a new home for the 2023 competitive season, or at the very least, the Pro-Am. Luckily, he and a few of his teammates from both iterations of MYMone were picked up by none other than the org who put a stop to his Contenders run time and time again, and the org who we represent here at OWCS Productions, OWWC. The battle to qualify for the Pro-Am was fierce for the European teams, as only 2 of them would qualify for the event. There were 4 teams that had a fighting chance at the Pro-Am, those being Oblivione themselves, SR Peakcheck, and Maimone's constant menaces of Twisted Minds and Team Peps. After advancing through round 1 and the quarterfinals with ease, Maimone and EXO would face the first of these obstacles, Twisted Minds. EXO started the match off strong by taking Antarctic Peninsula, but failed to produce any more map wins, meaning that it was lower bracket time. After taking care of Sovereigns, EXO had a tussle with SR Peakcheck, which resulted in a very close map 5 victory for Maimone and the squad, which put them in the lower bracket finals where they would yet again face off against Team Peps in an absolute slugfest. Much like Run It Back a few months prior, Maimone and his team went back and forth with Team Peps, only to lose on map 5, meaning that they would place 3rd and miss out on the opportunity to challenge the Overwatch League teams. It wasn't the end of the world, however. In fact, it was still just the start of the year, and Oblivione had made a couple changes heading into the Contenders Spring Series, which would be enough to comfortably secure 2nd place in the region, but still wasn't enough to climb the mountain that was Twisted Minds, as they got swept 4-0 in the finals. Despite hitting the wall of Twisted Minds multiple times already this year, Maimone had taken another step in his journey, now sitting at 2nd place in Europe heading into the second half of the year. It was now July, and time for the World Cup Conference qualifiers, where teams from EMEA would battle it out in 2 groups in order to earn their tickets to Anaheim for the main event at the end of the year.
In regards to the EMEA conference, that was so fun as well. It felt like it was even higher level of contenders, because it was like contenders in the way that I was playing against a lot of people that I've played against for so long, and then you add in all like the Overwatch League talent and the fact that you have like the rivalries between the teams and the nations. It was so fun, actually. Like, I need there to be another one next year. It was so good.
Maimone and Team UK found themselves in Group A alongside teams like France, Spain, and Denmark, where they would need to place in the top 3 to qualify for playoffs. Luckily, Europe's other heavy hitters of Finland, Saudi Arabia, and Sweden were in Group B, so Team UK's chances of qualifying were solid at worst. And to be honest, that might be underselling it, as Maimone, Kai, and the rest of Team UK went on to beat everyone except for Team Denmark, which was basically just an Overwatch League team in disguise. This result of course put Team UK at the top of Group A, meaning that they would be headed to California alongside Spain, France, Saudi Arabia, and Finland later this year. The Contenders Summer Series began a month later, and EXO went in with the additions of Chase and Sky in search of a stellar result for the last official Tier 2 event of the year. With Maimone and Cookie forming the DPS line, Vestola and Chase forming the tank duo, and Crispy, Canale, and Sky making up the support rotation, EXO was looking to be one of the top dogs in the region, going 9-2 in the group stage, only losing to Twisted Minds and those pesky one-tricks. EXO's playoff run started off slow, losing a map to Ataraxia before taking the following 3 and subsequently getting revenge against OWYOU in a shutout victory. The upper bracket final was next, and Twisted Minds was of course sat there, menacingly, waiting to get their hands dirty. Maimone and EXO managed to take map 1, but Twisted Minds got their pick of Eichenwald for map 2, and the rest of the series was history. Once again sent to the lower bracket by Twisted Minds, Maimone and the team found themselves facing yet another problem, SR Peakcheck. Another one of Europe's big 4 of the year, SR Peakcheck was like a cross between OWYOU and, well, any normal team basically, with their captain LH Cloudy preferring to force the rectangle man in every situation imaginable. It might seem silly, but this team was no joke, and even with Maimone on the Echo, the Bastion, or the Torbjorn, the London Spitfire-esque gameplay from SR Peakcheck was incredibly difficult to deal with, and they would defeat Maimone and EXO 3-1. This match against SR Peakcheck, while a surprising and unfortunate defeat, would prove to be insightful as the meta shifts going into the World Cup main event would pan out to be similar to the SR Peakcheck style, prioritizing lots of coordinated Symmetra plays. A 3rd place finish wasn't bad though, as he matched his finish from the previous year in an ecosystem that seemed to be producing more and more new talent as a result of the new game. And he didn't know it at the time, but this would actually be his very last official Contenders event, which we'll get into in a little bit, but all things considered, he left his mark on Contenders by nearly attending both European Grand Finals in its final year. Not bad at all. And finally, we have made it to the ultimate event of 2023 outside of Overwatch League's playoffs, which were also extremely significant for different reasons. But of course, it's time for the Overwatch World Cup main event in Anaheim, California. All year, teams had been scrimming and practicing in order to proudly represent their countries on the world stage. Maimone and Team UK were no different, and arrived in Anaheim in November to represent their home to the best of their abilities. Team UK hit a stroke of luck almost immediately by being placed in Group B alongside Canada, Australia, and Brazil. And it's no shade to those teams, it's simply the fact that they avoided South Korea, China, USA, and Saudi Arabia, who were basically just the same Twisted Minds roster Maimone had been struggling against all year long. In Group B, Team Canada was the biggest threat to Team UK, with Overwatch League players like Seeker, Cal, Crimzo, Echo, and False, making for a strong core. Map 1 was a close affair, with Maimone on the Echo to close out a 2-1 map of Ilios. Map 2 is another story entirely, which is where we as a community truly became awakened to how flexible Maimone really is.
Well, for DPS, like flex DPS, it was something that I wanted to make sure I could play like all the heroes in my role. I think that's really important. But in terms of like other roles, like especially support, I think just whenever I'm like chilling, I like playing support. Maybe some other people will play like another game when they're trying to chill, but I still want to like practice the game. But sometimes like playing like my main role is like I just want to chill, so I play support, and then it still feels like I'm like practicing a little bit, but I'm also having fun, and I guess that's how I got like pretty high level on support. I ended up playing BAP, which was an experience. I mean, it was kind of fun actually, because obviously it was like big Mei, and we have Backburn, and Backburn's like insane at Mei. So I was playing BAP, and that was a new experience, like playing another role at such a high level.
For Map 2 on Circuit Royale, Team UK brought Backbone off the bench to play Mei, but didn't fully sub Maimone out, as he actually fully role-swapped over to Flex support to play the Baptiste, something rarely seen in pro Overwatch. Even if he usually just plays support casually, he looked clean on the Baptiste in Team UK full-held Circuit Royale with all 3 of their DPS players in the server. This snowballed into Team UK nearly shutting out both Australia and Brazil in map score, which locked in Team UK's spot for playoffs. This wasn't Maimone's first LAN event, but it was certainly his biggest yet, with some of the Overwatch League's top talent finding their way into playoffs. The first hurdle of playoffs would be Team Finland, a European rival they'd managed to avoid up until now. Finland's roster was held up by the core of Vestola, Sana, and Masa, which gave the team not only heaps of talent, but a ton of experience that they would use to stop Maimone and the Brits at any cost. Map 1 was rough, with the meta seemingly not being in Team UK's favor.
Okay, so, well, the meta was not great for us. I would say on Team UK we didn't have that much flexibility in the comps we could play, and the meta was like Sigma comp, and that was not great for us.
On top of that, Maimone was committed to off-rolling on the Baptiste to fill the needs of the team. So those factors mixed with the experience gap led to Team UK accruing only 16% in both rounds of Lijiang Tower. Team UK took Map 2 to Midtown in hopes of turning things around, but without any adjustments to their team composition, Midtown looked more of the same, with Finland completing the map and then holding UK on point B. With their backs against the wall, Team UK took Map 3 to Suravasa, where they could take advantage of Orissa's extra mobility over Sigma, but this meta seemed to just be the bane of Maimone and the squad, with Team Finland sweeping Flashpoint and eliminating Great Britain early in their playoffs run.
Somebody from Great Britain the touch, or this is all over. Seconds ticking by. Funny Astro starts the overtime, but where is the rest of the team? Backflips around the corner on Tracer. Can't get there. Finland have done it. They go to the semifinals and lock in top 4.
The main problem was that like on our first game, like on stage, like proper stage against Finland, I just had COVID. I didn't know I had COVID at the time, but after I got back from the LAN, I did a test and I was sick for like 2 weeks after. So yeah, that was a really big bummer actually. The first time on like the proper big stage and I just had COVID. I felt so horrible. But that's just the way life is, you know. I mean, even if I didn't have COVID, I don't think we were going to beat Finland. They were very strong in that meta. They had like arguably like the best SIG in the world. They just had like such a good team for the meta. Yeah, the struggles were just mainly the meta, and if I had to be honest, yeah.
It's hard to know what to think about this event in regard to Maimone because it really doesn't feel like we got to see him at his best in his role. But it was fascinating and exciting to watch him flex over to support, and I'm sure he enjoyed the experience despite the results.
It was amazing. I think that was maybe my first experience in like truly like almost like an Overwatch League feel to it. Not the same as Overwatch League, but it felt like it was bigger than anything I'd done before. Like I'd played in like a lot of LANs before that, but it hadn't been as big. Just like smaller, like tier 2-esque LANs. It felt so amazing. Like especially playing with people that you know, really like-minded because they're all from the same country. It was so fun.
And that brings us to the end of 2023, which was a turbulent time as Blizzard had announced that the Overwatch League would be ending after 6 years of competition, leaving the door open for a new format, but also leaving players and teams high and dry for a couple of months. Most players and teams were in the market for a new beginning as the esport was reshaped, one of which being EXO, who dropped Maimone and the squad as everyone under the sun made their LFT posts. After a short wait, we learned more about the future of Overwatch esports in the form of the Overwatch Champions series, which would practically level the playing field and allow for Maimone and players like him to start punching up into the big leagues without any major boundaries. With OWCS on the horizon, all there was to do was practice and open as many doors as possible. The first of those doors for 2024 would be something very different, as in January, Maimone joined Redbird Esports, Illinois State University's varsity Overwatch team. Sporting players like Kuffa, Lethal, and Admiral, this Redbird Esports team was absolutely stacked for a collegiate team. While I could go into detail about this year of Collegiate, it would be easier to just tell you that he and the Redbirds absolutely dominated, placing first in every single major collegiate event they participated in. Highlights include first place in both the NACE Spring and Fall Leagues where they defeated Maryville University both times, first at the Collegiate Esports Commissioners Cup where Northwood got swept, and of course the official Overwatch Collegiate Champions Series where they beat Maryville 4-2 in May and Winthrop 4-1 in November. If you want to win Overwatch tournaments at the collegiate level, you will run into Maimone, and this is literally no exaggeration. 2024's long stretch of domination was truly impressive, and the Redbirds walked away from just about everything as champions, and Maimone got to experience North American Overwatch firsthand.
I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that NA has a lot more up-and-coming players, or just younger players in general actually, which I suppose tends to lead to like people having more passion, because they haven't really competed for as long, so they're more eager to grind. I think EU in general, all of their top pros are on the older side, and in general maybe there's less up-and-coming players. Like, that's not to say there are lots of up-and-coming players, but maybe there's more in NA.
Of course, Collegiate was just the tip of the iceberg, as on March 3rd, 2024, the Overwatch Champion Series finally began, and players and teams had been scrambling to build rosters. One of those teams was the European team LeftRightGnight, who picked up players like Galaa, Lethal, Admiral, Kuffa, and WMaimone, which meant that a good chunk of the Redbirds roster was competing in 2 regions at once. OWCS began with the Stage 1 Swiss stage, where 32 teams battled it out in order to be one of the top 16 who would move on. Maimone and LeftRightGnight went 7-2, which placed them in 11th, good enough to qualify for the group stage, but with Overwatch League talent now in the mix, it wasn't going to be easy. LeftRightGnight fell into Group B alongside EF Flex Zodiacs, Quick Esports, and Bubo Spraycheck. The first match, despite ending in a 3-0, was a fairly close game against Quick Esports, which brought Maimone and the team to the winner's match against Bubo Spraycheck, one of the few super teams that had been created in the wake of Overwatch League's end. Featuring Kevster, Kai, Vestola, and more, this team was a new giant in the European scene, and their match versus Maimone and the squad was a testament to that, as Bubo Spraycheck won 3-0.
That is brutal, as you're able to win that first fight just off the back of the Coalescence. The second, really kind of half of that fight, you win it off the Annihilation, and BSC, although with a draw there, did not look fantastic on Blizzard World. Clean up the rest of the series. It's about as convincing as it gets there, Matt.
With LeftRightGnight taking a draw on Blizzard World as a consolation prize.
Oh my mo, that's dirty! Kevster brought down, and a moment like that could give you the key opening here to win the map. Transcendence is in play, but it doesn't care about burst damage, and Ghost is in pieces now. Finally, Maimone's able to finish the kill here, but Kai's been going to work with those railguns. It's Admiral and Ariel both taken down. Sail barely staying alive, but Kai has great spacing. He can stay back behind Vestola, but he gets brought down, and Lethal brandishes the blade. He says, come and challenge me. We're looking to take the map away. Kevster, though, a key win here, and Maimone has to recall now, and 1 versus 2 eventually brought down as well. And BSC are able to secure the draw.
This dropped LeftRightGnight to the decider match with Quick Esports, who were looking for revenge. It was another close game between the two, with Kings Row going into an extra round and Colosseo ending with less than a 10-meter difference. This time, however, it wasn't LeftRightGnight coming out on top, as Quick Esports and their star players like Shax and Dawn secured their revenge, winning the match 3-0 and eliminating Maimone and LeftRightGnight from their first stage of OWCS.
Well, it's LeftRightGnight, our good night. Quick Esports with a 3-0 over LeftRightGnight, a complete reverse of what happened in week number 1. They take the W, they keep themselves in the tournament, and proceed to the main event, Rose.
A month later came Stage 2, and Maimone had fully made the move to NA, now competing on Team Fuck My Chungus Life with Seeker, Zira, Lep, and Renko. Despite being the product of immense Rostermania, this roster of former Overwatch League players and future OWCS standouts was deceptively strong and placed 5th in the Stage 2 Swiss stage. They entered the group stage in Group D, which ended up being the group of 3 Overwatch, where Vice and Nightmare Rotation got rolled.
You know when you just see some of these graphics and you're like, oh, all these numbers look normal, but then some of them pop up and one number is just like, whoa, what is that? It's like, that was like the first thing I saw was like 11 point. And I was like, oh, that's high. And then it was like, KD, that's very high.
Yeah, that's pretty damn high. Maimone. Wales gift to esports. It was a one-sided affair, and it's always good. It's always easy to look good on the Tracer, especially running against competition like this. But Maimone's mechanics on the Tracer specifically are just kind of nasty. Tracking-wise, Maimone is just a beast. He's always super fun to watch.
But students of the game proved to be on another level. Nonetheless, Maimone and FMCL progressed through the playoffs where the 3 Overwatch only intensified. In the upper bracket quarterfinals, FMCL faced M80 and their Overwatch League runner-up DPS duo of Pelican and Happy. They fought hard but fell 3-0 and dropped to the lower bracket where they took care of Who is Goldfish before once again facing students of the game.
Yeah, Zeruhh is back in the starting lineup. He did play some in the groups as well. We saw Seeker and Tracer. Funnily enough, I believe we actually saw Seeker and Zeruhh, the damage duo, when these two teams faced each other previously. So now, no Maimone in the lineup, who plays some of the Tracer. Spring the
We had solid games, I feel, on Tracer, honestly. Maimone is looking solid.
Maimone is good.
Yeah, but on the other side, students of the game...
FMCL certainly had the potential to win this match, but the Dark Lord takes no prisoners, and Maimone's Chungus life got real soggy as the students once again shut out FMCL, ending Maimone's Stage 2 with a 5th to 6th place finish.
Stuck in this overtime for a couple moments now. It's a Suzu committed, and PGE catches Maimone on the way down. But FMCL won't fall any further. They are out of the OWCS Stage 2 main event. Students of the game run the 3-0 back and run over them.
The year was far from finished though, and organizations across the globe were gearing up for the newest and biggest esports event on the scene, the Esports World Cup. EWC provided an exciting opportunity for players and teams to compete mid-year and earn a sizable chunk of prize money separate from OWCS. EWC was also so attractive that teams who were never involved in Overwatch like ENCE began showing up to sign rosters, and historic orgs began dipping their toes back into the scene. One of these orgs was NRG, who returned with their shock branding and signed the students of the game roster. In some twist of fate, Maimone briefly found himself here during the Face It League Season 1, which was also the road to EWC. Maimone bounced from NRG Shock to Timeless for Face It League before finally landing on ENCE in June, who picked up none other than Bubo Spraycheck. Unsurprisingly, Kevster, Kai, and the Bubo Spraycheck squad had no trouble qualifying for EWC, which meant that Maimone was going to Saudi Arabia with a sick new team.
I would say joining NRG, I mean, when the announcement and stuff came out, that was pretty cool, but kind of joining the team, it was super like a last minute thing. I think like Infected messaged me like saying like, do you want to join? I was like, sure. But yeah, I never really got any playtime, or like in a way it felt like pretty cool, but it was definitely when I joined ENCE was the first time where it felt like really special, I suppose. ENCE being such a big org, and especially like being teammates with players that I've looked up to for so long, it felt really insane. And then especially at EWC, where I actually like played like a decent amount. It was like 50-50 playtime with me and Kai. That was amazing. That was such a good experience, yeah.
ENCE arrived in Riyadh to fight in Group C, where they would first get revenge for Maimone by crushing M80 3-0. Next up was the Pacific team, Bleed Esports, who put up a bit more of a fight, taking map 1, before getting swept the rest of the way. Finally, ENCE faced off against Zeta Division, which was Maimone's first time facing an all-Korean roster on LAN. The series was close the entire way through, with Ilios going 2-1 in Zeta's favor and both teams struggling to attack in the following maps. Zeta captured only 2 points on Shambali Monastery and Midtown combined, but it was enough to win the series 3-0 as ENCE just couldn't make anything happen that day.
And that will be Zeta Division holding firm on this first point. And what was a spectacular defense for ENCE. They could not replicate anything on their attack, not even a single tick, as Zeta Division, they finished their group strong with a win, undefeated at 3-0.
Despite losing this match, ENCE still secured second place in their group and moved on to playoffs, where they met Fnatic in round 1. This match ended up being one of the best of the entire event, with Fnatic's lineup of top Korean talent fighting hard to stay in this single elimination bracket. Map 1 was a close fight, with ENCE taking Lijiang Tower to start the series off, but Fnatic then shot back with a map win of their own on Suravasa. It was clearly going to be a close battle, but ENCE turned the tides by winning the next 2 maps by masterfully utilizing their DPS rotation, keeping Kevster on Tracer as much as possible, while Maimone and Kai swapped out depending on the map.
They get pulled out from beneath them, and they lose it all. Donghak cannot do anything more. The overtime will expire, and ENCE will be taking the lead even further. They will be gaining match points. They are 1 map away from sending Fnatic home.
Match point for ENCE, Fnatic took it to Eichenwald where they kept their series alive by leaning into Mauga. This meant that it was ENCE's turn to pick the map that they'd hoped would be the closer. Midtown was the choice, and Maimone went back to the bench to let his UNCs finish the fight for him, which they did, winning the map 2-1 and advancing ENCE to the quarterfinals.
Down, Kepster finding another mirror. Gonna be eliminated as Knife rejoins the fight, but they are down so many players. As it was a solid hold in front of B, it seemed like they had everything scripted ready to take us into a 7th and final. But as Knife erupts from the ground, he will be put 6 feet back under. ENCE bring this one to a conclusion. They allow Fnatic to get close, but not too close.
Maimone was finally getting his opportunity to prove himself, and he was making the most of it, looking great on the Echo, Genji, Sombra, and even Venture in light of playing off the bench.
Yeah, Venture was like, honestly, I really like playing Venture, but I think before ENCE, I don't even think I touched the hero. I think there was a point where teams were playing Venture, maybe in Korea, like Venture Genji maybe, and maybe it was Crimzo who suggested it or something, because obviously like it would fit, like we have Kev on Genji, and he was like, you should practice some Venture or something. So yeah, it was pretty fun. I think now Venture is like, it's such a niche hero, so I basically never get to play it, but I would say I'm pretty good at the hero. Fun hero for sure.
His next opponents, however, were nothing like Fnatic, Zeta Division, or anyone he'd faced before. In the quarterfinals of EWC, ENCE had the pleasure of facing Crazy Raccoon on LAN with $400,000 on the line. We could get into it, but it really wasn't pretty, as Crazy Raccoon was beginning to pave their legacy with players like Lip, Shu, Junbin, and more making for one of, if not the best, Overwatch roster of all time. It would have taken a miracle to defeat this team, and it simply wasn't in the cards for ENCE at the time.
There's Lip on the hunt, just trying to see how much more he can pad the stats, trying to go ahead and prove that he is going to be the guy with the gold medal for eliminations at the end of it all. As the overtime will now bleed
Crazy
down.
Raccoons are going to push.
I mean, well, they can only do it so much. They can only push when there's people there, and they can't push when there's people there, so...
Yeah. I mean, here's the moral of the story here. Crazy Raccoons, they didn't even have to give the OT over. If they simply didn't push the payload, I guarantee the C9 would have happened. So Crazy Raccoons just having a little bit of fun at the end there, knowing that they win regardless, and not a single winning matchup for ENCE at the end of the day. They tried everything. They got the circuit rail early. They had the Sigma matchup, couldn't win there. They tried to make things happen on the Midtown. Can we maybe do something with a bit of a diva look here? Another Sigma. Ram going over towards Runasapi. That doesn't work out with Solar. Unfortunately, the pressure is just too high. His Sigma got blown off the circuit. His Ram got blown up on Runasapi. I don't know. Crazy Raccoons are just too good in this one.
If the bracket had shaped up a bit differently, ENCE might have made it a bit farther, but at the end of the day, there was no avoiding Crazy Raccoon, who were simply on another level. This experience wasn't soiled by the defeat, however, as it served as Maimone's biggest and most competitive event yet, and he finally got to experience the challenge of facing Korean super teams on a big stage.
I think competing last year was so fun at that tournament, but more of like a overall thing is just the event as a whole. Like, it was so good, actually. Like, the amount of money they put into it was crazy. Everything about it was very, very fun. Just the whole thing in general.
Moving into Stage 3 of OWCS, it was hard to gauge who was at the top of Europe, seeing as all 3 EU teams were decisively dispatched by the other regions at EWC. ENCE made a couple of changes, adding Chase and Kellex, and entered Group B, where they easily took first without losing a map. And apparently this was the kind of energy they took from EWC, as they went into playoffs and just started wreaking havoc, shutting out Hypnos, Twisted Minds, and Virtus Pro to find themselves in the grand finals.
But it's a clean sweep here for ENCE, re-establishing their claim to dominance in EMEA. And the Bears are headed down to the lower bracket for a short hibernation, and I mean short.
ENCE kind of turns up in a big way. I think VP, I think the biggest issue, like, is if VP gets back to like a match here against ENCE and like a rematch, right? Is it's clear that the kind of compositions that they want to play is not going to work against this team.
Maimone once again found himself facing a potential tournament victory, except this time it was in Tier 1. The one caveat is that by this point, due to a combination of factors, ENCE had been mostly playing Kevster and Kai without many substitutions, as Maimone began taking more of a backseat role as a coach.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there was like a mix of two things. So number one, it was that we didn't have a coach anymore. So that's like one thing in itself. And then also the way, like, we were in boot camp in Finland, and the meta was kind of solidifying itself, and there was like pretty much no flexibility. Like, if you look back at Stockholm, it was pretty much always Mauga, Reaper, Echo, Juno Brick. So like, I wasn't really going to be playing because it was Kai on Reaper and Kev on Echo. And so I still like was like really, really eager for us to do good and stuff, you know? So, I mean, I wouldn't say I took up the role of a coach. I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask the players, but I just tried really hard to help us improve. Just did what I could. And yeah, up on stage, because we didn't have an official coach, I was the person who was on the stage and like doing the bans and the maps. So that was kind of stressful, because obviously it's not something I've done before. But yeah, it was a different experience for sure.
So while Maimone may not have entered the server much during this stage, he still contributed in his own way behind the scenes, which culminated in a rematch against Virtus.pro for the stage title. And started hot, taking Samoa 2-1 and sweeping Zeruhh with their new players putting in work.
And Virtus.pro gets sat down in the harshest way possible. A brutal 3-0. I'm whipping my mic cord around because I'm just freaking out. That should not have happened.
Virtus.pro weren't keen on playing more 3 Overwatch though, and bounced back on the next 2 maps.
And that is a dominant showing by Virtus.pro here on Paraiso. Chase gets subbed in for ENCE. They think they have an option at least with the Winston comp, and they look terrible.
ENCE took it to Collegiate in response, where they gained an early lead before only narrowly taking the map.
His own, and ENCE have fought back in the series, taking things to Collegiate, relying on the tried and true D.Va composition. They get that done.
With their backs against the wall, VP took it to Junkertown, where Kai and Sky could really shine on their long-range heroes, which contributed heavily to ENCE taking this map and winning Stage 3 in an extremely convincing fashion.
Still from Galaa. Vastola now needs to threaten the backline, and Kevster might have done it. That might be the kill that gets them there. ENCE is all they needed. And eventually, they emerge from the depths with the Bears in their grasp. Finally, claiming victory in EMEA.
Although he wasn't in the server, this win was Maimone's to take, marking his very first tournament victory at this level, winning over countless Overwatch League players he had only dreamed of beating just a year prior. Although it was hyped to win Stage 3, the most important stage yet was next, as Stage 4 began only a month later, and was the key to making it to Stockholm for the season playoffs. Maimone was still acting as a coach, and ENCE was still cooking, once again getting through the group stage without dropping a map. ENCE entered the playoffs and continued their streak by crushing a one-man army, but started to feel a bit of pushback when playing Piece of Cake in Space Station Gaming. Nonetheless, ENCE beat both in 3-1 matches, which put them in their second grand finals in 2 months.
The previous king of EMEA remains ENCE dominant showing in that last map, and Space Station, frankly, just ran out of options against them in this series.
Their opponent would be Space Station Gaming yet again, but this time, something changed. Space Station seemed to really be finding their footing at the worst time imaginable for ENCE. Having just defeated Twisted Minds, Space Station were amped up and their Orisa May composition was working wonders for them. So much so that the previously stalwart ENCE ended up losing this grand finals 0-4.
It's Kevster stepping up on the Tracer, but he eats a shield bash immediately, and Backbone burns them all down. Space Station sweep ENCE away to take our stage title here and go to Stockholm looking like the most ferocious prospect out of EMEA.
Definitely a tough way to go out, seeing as they were the tournament favorites, but at the very least, ENCE had earned themselves tickets to Stockholm by coming runner-up. All there was to do now was prepare. Being the very first OWCS World Finals, this was really a special event, as it showcased the early heights of this new format. All of the globe's top teams, as well as ENCE's rivals, were here, and after all the preamble and ceremonies, the teams took to the stage in the upper bracket quarterfinals to fight in first to 2 bouts. ENCE, with Maimone still coaching from the dugout, faced off against North America's strongest team, Toronto Defiant, who was practically meta-proof with jack-of-all-tanks Someone, proving to be an extremely valuable asset as the meta shifted towards Mauga going into the event. Without a strong Mauga player, ENCE struggled against Toronto, who shut them down 2-0, sending them down to the lower bracket to face the other Overwatch League holdout, NRG Shock. Now a revamped version of Students of the Game, the NRG Shock were a scary team in their own right who didn't play into the Mauga meta at all. Shock had a completely different vision of the meta at the time, playing Kellen on the Junker Queen with Tree playing the Sombra. This composition was likely not something ENCE had prepared for, as they failed to capture a point on map 1, struggled on map 2, and ultimately let it slip away on Midtown, ending their season right there in the lower bracket round 1.
As NRG Shock eliminates ENCE, a 3-0. It's not so easy anymore. Not when you're facing the Shock.
Maimone and ENCE finished the first season of OWCS in 7th to 8th place and earned themselves $25,000 in prize money. Kevster managed to earn himself a regional MVP, and Maimone got a year of Tier 1 competition under his belt, earning a couple of great finishes along the way. This was easily Maimone's best year yet, but having not seen much playtime for half a year, he was beginning to question what his next step was. The offseason went by in a flash, and suddenly OWCS 2025 Stage 1 was upon us. ENCE had decided to step out of Overwatch 2 entirely, so Maimone and the rest were all in search of new homes. While most found them, Maimone actually decided to take Stage 1 off, unsure if he would return as a player, a coach, or at all. While his former teammates continued to compete for glory in OWCS, Maimone resumed his role as a starting player on Redbird Esports, who continued to compete and dominate in 2025 before something unexpected happened. On May 19th, ISU announced that they would be dissolving their Overwatch Varsity program and transitioning it into a club, something that no dedicated collegiate esports player wants to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. They have said that we can have our scholarships for another year, but pretty much all of us have longer than that left of our to finish our degrees. So yeah, it's not great, but it kind of just is, it is what it is. There's also other schools, there's many other schools in Collegiate, so maybe we'll all end up moving to one of those, but for now, we're all staying for next semester at ISU.
Despite the feelings of uncertainty around Redbird, Maimone would be glad he stuck around, as his teammates were keeping themselves busy by heading to Champions Clash under Nightmare, where they upset Crazy Raccoon in one of the most energetic matches of all time. This of course made the Nightmare stock shoot through the roof, which caused their star player Zeruhh to get poached by Team Liquid, leaving a massive Flex DPS shaped hole in the roster. There was little time to fill that seat, but luckily, the guys knew the right person to call as they left Nightmare to seek out an exciting new opportunity. On May 10th, Admiral, Kuffa, Lethal, Ultraviolet, and Maimone were picked up by GK Esports to compete in OWCS 2025 Stage 2 in North America, where they would be aiming to run it back in the mid-season tournament with their new DPS player who's looking to step up and start taking names for himself.
For sure, I want to make my own name. I think it's the first team in a while I'm the full-time starter on, and it's a very good team. So it's a really good opportunity, and I just want to keep improving and putting up as good of performances, rather.
This team has come with a bit of controversy, however, as the community pondered how a North American team can have 3 European players and an Australian despite the 2-player import rule.
So yeah, we came out to the US last year, 2024. We all decided to move out to the US to do Collegiate before OWCS news even came out. It was just after Overwatch League had ended, and there was a lot of uncertainty about what was going to go on in the pro scene, and Redbirds was looking for a team, and they did trials and stuff, and obviously the team that they have now is who got chosen to the team. And we all decided to go out there because we felt like it was the best decision with not a lot of certainty. And then obviously the news of OWCS came out, and it kind of put us in a really hard situation because the whole team of Redbirds was all count as imports. And we tried messaging Blizzard explaining that we didn't know this was going to be the case before we came out, but they didn't change the rules, so we had to count as imports on the various teams that we played on. But then going into 2025, when we were speaking to Blizzard, because we'd been in the US for a year studying and all the previous things I'd said, they decided to make an exception for us. I don't know, in my eyes, I think it's really fair. We all study out here, especially the fact we didn't even know the news. We didn't know OWCS was going to go into this import system before we decided to come out. And living and choosing to go to another country is a big decision, so I think it's really fair that Blizzard decided to give us exceptions.
After getting the green light from Blizzard, GK began preparing for Stage 2, where Maimone initially had some struggles integrating into the team.
I would not say it's been super easy. I would say even though I have competed with 4 of the 5 players on Redbirds, I would say competing in Collegiate is not the same thing as OWCS, especially because the team environment in GK is definitely different, because we have different coaches, especially Gultek, which his system of how to play the game is very different. And then obviously there is UV, who I haven't played with before.
Not only had it been hard to adjust, but replacing Zeruhh was quite a tall task, considering how well he performed in China.
Well, I don't know how much people know about when Zeruhh left for Liquid, but it was literally a day before roster lock, or 12 hours before. So to be fair, they didn't have loads of time to look around, but it had been something he'd got the offer to go quite a while before that. So they'd already in the back of their mind been thinking about, if he leaves, what should we do? So yeah, I would say I was who they wanted to pick up. Yeah, I would say there's some pressure, I think, especially after how good they did in Stage 1 and in China. But I suppose the fact that they are my friends, that helps. But yeah, there's definitely pressure, for sure.
Despite the challenges he'd faced since joining the team, Maimone was still intent on maintaining his position as a starter and contributing to his team's success as much as possible.
I'm really eager to win. To be honest, I think to be at the top level of Overwatch, you have to be really passionate and really want to win the game. I would say I have good flexibility, I think, compared to maybe some of the other flex DPS in NA. I think I can play a lot of heroes in the flex DPS role. Maybe some of the more off-meta heroes as well. You brought up Venture earlier, but I also think heroes like Mei and Sombra, even Echo and Pharah. I think I do have quite a wide hero pool, so I think that is useful, especially when metas change. And yeah, of course, previous synergy, knowing the guys for over a year now, so I think that helps a lot as well.
So in June, Maimone and Geek Esports set out on their quest to conquer Stage 2, where Freya vaulted onto the scene, shaking up the meta quite a bit. From the very beginning of Stage 2, it was clear that Freya was going to be quite strong, and as the hitscan player, that duty fell on Lethal, which left Maimone to focus on his strengths as a flex DPS player. Geek started Stage 2 strong by taking out Supernova and Sakura Esports without much trouble, but next up in Week 3 was their first big challenge. Space Station Gaming was one to prepare for, as they had a star-studded roster of former Overwatch League players and arguably North America's top flex DPS. Winning this game would be a big statement for Geek and Maimone, and their synergy from years of playing together on Redbird and Nightmare really started to pay off as they snatched up OWCS. SSG took it to Zeruhh, where they started to turn the tides, taking the first 2 points. Geek, however, leaning into Kuffa's hazard, were able to clutch up and steal the map back, leaving Sugarfree and the team 0-2 going into King's Row. SSG attacked first and took it to point C, where Geek's core began to look unstoppable, with Lethal making Sojourn feel like an effective alternative to Freya, and Maimone starting to look like potentially the best Sombra in North America. With 2 points on the board for SSG, Geek's win condition was in sight as they stormed through point A and B before closing out their first unpartnered upset with Maimone receiving match MVP.
The team kill lands and Geek Esports will take down Space Station Gaming 3-0.
You know who popped off for GK? WMaimone.
He and the team wouldn't be able to celebrate for long, as Week 4 was their double showing and it would start off with yet another mountain to climb, Team Liquid. Geek started off strong with a win on round 1 of Control, but Team Liquid's high-paced playstyle ended up winning out in the end. With their map pick, Geek took it to Circuit Royale where they would showcase something never before seen in competitive Overwatch, the Beaver Backline. As the name somewhat implies, the Beaver backline is the combination of Baptiste and Lifeweaver, and allows for the Geek supports to play extremely far back and stay safe while Kuffa on the hazard can dive deep and get pulled out. All the while Lethal is open to look for kills and Maimone can skulk around in the shadows being a menace on Sombra. This had clearly been something Geek cooked up in secret as Team Liquid struggled to make any progress and had to switch their comp to no avail. This left Geek with an easy attack and a cheeky map win that may have spawned a whole new beast in your Circuit Royale ranked games.
I think what happened was our coach suggested like either BAP or Weaver have like been buffed recently, maybe both, and that we should like try playing it. And yeah, I don't know, I think we just tried playing it in scrims and it worked out really well. It kind of suits especially UV. Like UV is such a really like an insanely talented player, and I think that comp kind of allows your BAP to go a little bit crazy actually. In some scenarios you can go really aggressive.
The rest of the series was extremely close, with Team Liquid winning by meters on Runasapi, followed by a slugfest on King's Row, won by Geek using the Beaver backline once again. The final map was New Junk City, and of course it went all the way to point 5, where after some back and forth, Geek wrestled their way to the top and Maimone took Zeruhh out to close out this map 5 banger. This series not only started to prove that Geek were the best team in North America, but it also began showcasing Maimone's true potential as a top flex DPS player in the West, as he had now taken down Sugarfree, Zeruhh, and Tree, leaving both partnered teams in the dust. Their doubleheader was swiftly capped off with a sweep of Dilducks, and Week 5 saw the 5th blowout of the stage against Extinction. Their final bout of the regular season was against the new Nightmare, which was on a hot streak of their own, having also defeated the 2 partner teams on their run. This match literally went back and forth, with Maimone and Rocket exchanging blows in the Genji duel as Geek found themselves in yet another map 5 situation with a flawless stage on the line. Set on New Junk City yet again, this map saw both Genji players swap to the Tracer as they continued handing points back and forth, leaving the series on the very edge with Chronic hitting some nice plays, but it wasn't enough as Maimone and Geek shut Nightmare down and secured their spot at the top of North America going into the regional playoffs.
They fall at the final hurdle as Geek with a 100-0 on the final point as Rocket just gets battle rifled by Ultraviolet. A 3-2 victory for Geek as they go undefeated in Stage 2.
In the upper bracket semifinals, Geek faced Space Station, who were hoping to get revenge. With Freya now out of the meta, Space Station were starting to gain some traction with Seeker on the Sojourn, but this meta suited Geek's synergistic playstyle, with Maimone pulling out the Symmetra to start running circles around SSG, taking the first 2 maps with this new look. In map 3, SSG brought it to New Junk City, where Maimone and Sugarfree faced off in the Genji mirror, going back and forth making big plays before Space Station barely won it out in the end.
As well, but Sugarfree's already killed 3 people. April, UV, Maimone are down. Sugarfree again keeping them in the series. 99%, and there it is. Space Station with a map on the board.
Now at match point with their choice of maps, GK took it to Coliseum where the Symmetra returned and they took the series by a margin of less than 2 meters.
As GK just needs to clean up the final couple of members, and they find themselves in the upper bracket final, knocking Space Station down to lowers.
One partner team down, one to go, and Team Liquid was up next in the upper bracket finals, who seemed to have a new swiftness to their step as they came out swinging and took the first 2 maps of the series. But GK weren't going to roll over that easily as they took it to King's Row where Maimone and Zeruhh battled back and forth on the flanks. GK's attack lasted into overtime, but they managed to take it after this clutch 4K from Maimone.
Like I said, staggered respawns could be really massive. Huge kill from Zeruhh. That will impact the fight because if you get a full respawn, it's going to be massive. With Zeruhh going down, GK may still have good numbers.
Touch, you got to touch.
Trying to touch.
Nice boop. Can they get back? No, the boop is too good from April.
On Team Liquid's attack, the Beaver backline re-emerged and gave Zeruhh and the team some real trouble, as point A was close and point B went into overtime.
They made in for the touch.
No spot for Zeruhh as well. Nice little stick on the top of the battle platform as April ends up going down. Nice little double blink from Zeruhh to helping you Infected destroy that lamp and take down Ultraviolets. Now GK slowly bleeding out. This wrecking ball is going to be so hard to take down. No chance for a C9 either, not with the amount of players for Team Liquid alive on that point.
Despite their best efforts, Kuffa was absolutely unkillable, getting life gripped and lamped on cooldown, allowing GK to put a win on the board. Team Liquid took us to Runasapi, where they started off on the back foot with GK preserving momentum from the last map. GK had built up a nearly 60-meter lead by the halfway point, making a map 5 seem likely. But with 3 minutes remaining, Team Liquid took control of the bot and started their comeback that would see GK lose fight after fight before suddenly it was overtime, and they were behind by 30 meters. They finally had the bot, but it was too little too late as their overtime push was cut short by Zeruhh, Infected, and the rest of Team Liquid. This was GK's first loss of the stage and Maimone's first loss of 2025. And well, it was an important one as it dropped Maimone and GK down to the lower bracket where they would be fighting against Elimination versus Nightmare. GK were hoping to get the wind back under their sails, with Nightmare being hurt by the Freya nerfs. After round 1 of OWCS, however, it was clear that it wouldn't be that easy. Maimone and the team stuck to their guns though, and pulled out the Beaver backline to win on City Center and clutch out a close round of University to win the map. This close affair would carry over into Circuit Royale, where GK made a slight altercation to the Beaver backline, replacing Baptiste with Ilari, which worked for a while, but Nightmare was eventually able to break through before finally being stopped on point C. On GK's attack, Maimone once again faced off against Rocket in the Genji duel and pulled off some big plays, completing the map with nearly 3 minutes to spare.
He can't. Nice boop. Orbital rate in the back pocket as GK take match point.
Wind back in their sails, GK went into Nightmare's pick of New Junk City and began hammering the nail in the coffin, with Maimone showing off on the Venture and Tracer to punch their ticket to the Grand Finals match where they would once again face their partnered counterparts, Team Liquid. From the very first control point, you could tell that this was going to be a banger, with Maimone fighting with GK to claim the top of North America, and Zeruhh trying his best to play showstopper to his old teammates, which he and Liquid would get an early start on with Tree opening his third eye on the Hanzo.
Yeah, well, you need to see Lethal Maimone get something here, and that delivers Vega down 93% to Rush as well.
Wait! Do you hear me? Invis? Invis cross-map?
He touched.
Okay. He got the touch. EMP connects, and no touch there, Team Liquid.
EK took map 2 to King's Row where they beat Team Liquid in the regular season, pulling out the Beaver backline on attack and fighting tooth and nail to finish the map in overtime. Team Liquid's attack proceeded off the back of Tree's Hanzo up until point C, where Maimone pulled out the Symmetra and halted any and all momentum Liquid had, tying up the series 1-1.
GK's defense looking infallible with this sim. The high ground was a problem, but not when you got a TP, as Team Liquid end up falling over on King's Row as GK tie the series.
Liquid risked another Beaver appearance by taking map 3 to Circuit Royale, where Maimone spearheaded GK's attack on the Venture while Lethal pressured the long sightlines and the core pushed up through the middle.
I will dig on the statue soon, okay?
Yeah.
And then
I'm not walking a minute ago.
Okay, digging statue. 3, 2, 1.
I saw there is a...
Someone win. ATP out.
Sure. Kill the turn now.
Yeah, we're fine.
Come here.
I'm half run trolling.
I can dig again in 3.
Yeah.
They have no pull. Can we hard push it? 3, 2, 1. Walk.
I saw the big stuff.
I've left it, yo.
Come here. Run trolling. Kill them. I'm inside that.
Nice. Dennis, let's go.
No.
This composition proved hard to stop, as GK paved through point B, with Maimone starting to be a real problem on the venture.
From GK brings down the beast. And there's the cap. 3 points on the board with time to spare.
GK reached the end shortly after and began their defense, maintaining their Lucio look instead of running the Beaver backline, something they may have soon regretted as Team Liquid rolled up to point C with over 5 minutes on the clock.
Maimone's gonna have to burrow out of there. Cover down, Afro no sound barrier. Like, GK, they still got one ultimate, but this is Liquid cap at this point. I mean, look at this time back as well. It's going to be monstrous.
Thankfully for GK, they had a nasty Symmetra player in Maimone, and point C of Circuit Royale was a great place to take advantage of that, with GK playing a Vanishing Act for 5 minutes straight, winning fight after fight after fight to clutch up like crazy and take the lead in the series.
Behind it, sound barriers connect from both sides, but Knife being down is going to be a man disadvantage for Team Liquid as they're huddling in this room, trying to kill Lethal. A massive value lap as well from Ultraviolet has just gone undone and saved him. A high ground window for RuPaul, but it's not enough. Overtime ticks down, and GK...
Team Liquid needed to recover after such a tough loss, and went to Runasapi where their suffering only continued, as Maimone re-emerged on the Symmetra and Infected struggled to find targets. After only 3 minutes, GK had eyes on the Team Liquid spawn door with 132 meters pushed. It would take a monumental effort for Liquid to come back from this, and they fought hard to take the first checkpoint, but GK's comp came out on top, leaving things at match point.
And there's the wall. They're just going to jump on Infected. Infected's got no help. No help for the Mauga. Completely walled off. And Maimone's just going to seal the deal just like that. Lethal. Just putting a flare, an extra firework in the sky with that overclock. And there it is. GK now on match point versus Team Liquid.
Suravasa was Liquid's next choice, and GK once again started off strong, asserting control of the first point early. But as soon as Infected started balling, things got rocky, with Team Liquid wrestling the point back and taking the lead. GK responded by taking one of their own, but Liquid's composition was hard to lock down, and they rolled through the next 2 points to start clawing back into this series.
Sound barrier comes in, and that'll do it. 3-1 victory for Team Liquid.
GK looked to run Flashpoint back in an attempt to close out this grand finals, and rolled out on the Symmetra Hazard comp yet again. Infected charged out on the Mauga, which hadn't worked for them on the wide-open Runasapi, but here on New Junk City, the angles were a lot tighter and sightlines a lot shorter, which made the Samoan tank much more effective as Team Liquid took Arena, then Bomb Flats, and finally the Ducks to bring the series to map 7.
As well, onto cover, Maimone struggling to stay alive in the corner, ends up getting Suzu, but the pulse bomb doesn't even get thrown out. Infected secures the kill onto Maimone. Cover also ends up going down as Team Liquid is just routing GK. Infected now pushing on the point, putting his manly body on there, and there's no one from GK that can really answer him. Lethal with the railgun just gets smacked up aside the head though by Tree. And that is a 3-0. We're going to a map number 7 here in the NA Grand Finals as Team Liquid school GK on New
While
Junk
both
City.
teams had already clinched their spot in the mid-season championship, it all came down to one map of OWCS to decide who would be North America's first seed. GK rolled out on their signature composition in round 1, where they established control of City Center early, making it extremely difficult for Liquid to push through the chokes. Eventually Liquid broke through, which prompted Maimone to swap to the Tracer and clean up, to bring GK 1 round away from winning North America.
WMaimone ends up taking down RuPaul as Infected also falls. Nano boost from RuPaul, not a factor in this fight any longer. A 99% as Zeruhh gets the touch for OT again, but the Tracer swiftly dealt with. 99-27 as GK find the first
Round 2 went to University, where GK swapped Admiral over to Lucio and began a slugfest, with each team's DPS pulling out nice plays, but in the end, GK took down the partner Titans and claimed their throne at the top of North America.
GK, they use B, they press the issue, the annihilation on the point. Maimone has been traded, but I mean, Cover is going to be just indestructible in the front line. Ravenous Vortex misses his mark, but it's all good because GK have got the points. They may not have the pulse bomb, but they only need to deal with Infected and Zeruhh, who's on the point. Zeruhh needs some devious heroics right now to come back in. He finds one kill, make that a second! Zeruhh is keeping Team Liquid in this fight. RuPaul's going to be able to teleport onto the point, but how much can Zeruhh do? A stick from Maimone kills off Tree, and overtime will tick down. Maimone now scurrying away, and Zeruhh does it once more! Another kill onto the Tracer, but how long can he keep this up?
It's buying time for Vega. Vega's about to find B finally as Infected comes back on his signature ball. Team Liquid still have the opportunity to fight.
Zeruhh forced a recall there. It's Infected, like you said. Spinning to win on the point. As Zeruhh trying to just recover his CDs. A double blink onto the back line, but the sound barrier from Team Liquid might have just done it. A nice little slam as well. The lamp not enough for Ultraviolet and Admiral to stay alive in this fight. Zeruhh pulls out heroics again for Team Liquid. A pulse bomb onto the shield, but it does not matter. They just need to continue to touch. Cover has popped their Nemesis form and it's actually clocked 2 people. It's WMaimone ends up coming in the clutch with another kill onto Vega. It's just cover. What? There's no way! GK have done it! They've defeated the curse of Team Liquid. They are your Stage 2 North American champion.
Not only was this an incredible run with GK only dropping a single match, but it was Maimone's first taste of tournament victory as a starter in OWCS. This was a statement victory as he proved that he was no downgrade from Zeruhh and truly deserved to claim his spot as one of the West's most lethal flex DPS players. So GK has claimed their spot as North America's first seed, leaving Maimone and the team to prepare for the mid-season championship and reflect on their Stage 2 performance thus far.
I wouldn't say there's a massive gap between us and the partner teams. I think especially Liquid have been doing a lot better recently, at least in scrims. I guess we'll have to see what happens on match days. But yeah, I guess we did go flawless in the group stage, which is nice. My expectations going into the stage was definitely to be like one of, if not the best team. But obviously there's like pressure that comes with that. But yeah, I guess so far we are living up to that.
Maimone, now the only player to have won an OWCS stage in 2 different regions, will soon be headed to Riyadh with GK for his second EWC, where squads like Team Liquid, Nightmare, and Crazy Raccoon will be waiting. So as we wrap up, make sure you check them out on social media to continue following this story as it unravels. The future is never certain in Overwatch esports, but Maimone's certainly looks bright as he ponders on his ambitions now that he's at the top of NA.
My ambitions, my goal would probably be to become the best flex DPS in the West. It's a hard goal, but it's also like realistic. I would say maybe some people would say they want to be like the best in the world, but I feel like that's maybe hard to reach. I think if I can become like the best in the West, I would be really happy with that. I just want to keep improving. I feel like the feeling of improving is so nice, getting higher and higher, winning more.
So what do you think? Is he on his way to becoming the best in the West? Is he potentially already the best on heroes like the Sombra and Venture? Let us know in the comments. We here at OWCS Productions love watching Maimone, believe he has much more to show, and can't wait to cheer him on at EWC and the rest of OWCS, not to mention the potential World Cup next year. His story has been incredibly fun to relive throughout the making of this video, and it shows how anyone can go from console to the big leagues with hard work, dedication, and support.
To people who support me, I would just say thank you. I do really appreciate it. Like whenever I see like messages like which are like supporting me or whatever, I do really appreciate that. And I suppose advice to up and coming players, I would say you just need to have a really good mindset of improving. It's also like a balance, you know, of like being harsh on yourself and like taking the blame for things, like not blaming other people, but also not being too harsh to the point where it like hurts you, you know, like you don't want to like always be so critical to the point where it like making you feel bad or whatever. But yeah, ultimately you just need to play the game a lot. That would be my advice. Yeah.
Thank you so much to WMaimone for joining us for this video, and of course, thank you for watching. Most of our viewers aren't subscribed, so make sure to hit that subscribe button in order to catch the next installation of our Spotlight series, which will be an absolute banger featuring Top Dragon. Check out the rest of our spotlights if you enjoyed this one, and I might as well mention that Patreon saw this first. So thank you to our wonderful patrons, and check the description for details on how you can gain early access to our content while supporting the channel. Finally, I'd like to thank our producer, OWCS, assistant producer, Unfeatured, graphic artist, ET, as well as Jay and user Intel for their work behind the scenes. Be sure to show them some love in the comments. And that's gonna be it for me. I've been your writer, editor, and narrator, Shoddy Flow, signing off. Deuces.